Hello, everyone, and welcome to this licensing update for the month of September 2021. I want to take you through the changes in the product terms and some alternative things that are currently happening in the Microsoft licensing world. I won't talk about the pricing uplift that is going to happen in the new calendar year in March 2022 because Eric already did a video about it. If you want to learn more and see our views on this, I would highly recommend you go to our YouTube channel and find this video. Eric is going a little bit deeper into what this might mean and what options you might have going forward, especially if you have a renewal on or after March 2022. That might be very interesting. Another thing you might notice is that I'm sitting in front of a very empty bookshelf. It used to be very full of books. I am currently packing up because I'm going to move house. In the coming months, you will see more and more of me in different locations. So stay tuned for that as well. But on to the subject at hand, the product terms. So this month, a couple of additions and changes to the product terms. A big one on the Azure services front. That's this one. Big one as in big textually. Not that sure if it's very top of mind for a lot of companies that are dealing with these types of things. But if you are creating security and compliance application, this might be of interest to you, because this is stating what will happen if you have a compliance application, and it is defined as a software program or service that is built exclusively to ensure that an organization is complying their security related requirements, or if you have security applications, meaning software programs built exclusively to protect and defend the information and technology assets of an enterprise, then this might be of interest to you. Because they have security and compliance APIs. If you use Microsoft Graph, you might be familiar with these APIs, the change notification API, export or patch API. And what Microsoft is saying is that if you have any of these eligible licenses and are using these APIs, that Microsoft will bill you for all commercial consumption of API messages, including but not limited to the use with the following applications: backup and restore applications, sentiment analysis, and analytics and insights. These terms supersede anything that is currently in the Microsoft API terms of use that is linked here. So if you are working with or on these security and compliance applications, this might be of interest to you. Another smaller change on the Azure front is on the Azure Virtual Desktop entry. It's a bit higher up. Azure Virtual Desktop conditions. The Azure Virtual Desktop control plane may only be used to manage virtual desktop VMs running on Azure. Windows 10 Enterprise Multi-Session is limited for use on Azure Virtual Desktop VMs running on Azure only. Small addition might be relevant for people using this service. Now, in the glossary, because apparently it wasn't clear enough, any terms defined in this glossary apply unless otherwise defined in product-specific terms. So, like I just showed you on the Azure front, for instance, if it says that the items referenced in that section supersede all other terms, then they supersede also any definitions that might be in here that might be in effect on those terms. If we look to the universal license terms for online services, you see a change in the online services step-up availability and license assignment. This is a clause that was added specifically to state how step-ups are handled in the online services space. So in order to qualify for a step-up or go to a higher edition during your term of the agreement, so you have Exchange Online Plan 1, for instance, and you want to move to Plan 2, you can buy a step up. Or if you have Enterprise Mobility Suite, Enterprise Mobility and Security Suite E3, and you want to use Azure Information Protection Plan 2, you can buy a step up for that service. Do not pay double the license cost for the Azure Information Protection Plan 1 license. However, a higher edition license acquired using a step-up SKU can only be assigned to a licensed user of a qualifying base license. This means that you have to assign the license, the step-up license that you buy, to the users that have the underlying license. So you cannot buy a step-up for Exchange Online Plan 2 and assign it to a different user than the user having an Exchange Online Plan 1 license. And once the higher edition license is acquired, customers may not separate it from the qualifying base license. Again, you cannot reassign the Exchange Online Plan 1 license to a different user because you bought the step up to Exchange Online Plan 2. However, this is an error that is made quite a lot, because what you see in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center, it usually doesn't specify if it's a step up. So what you see in the Admin Center is I have an X amount of Exchange Online Plan 2 licenses, and I have an Y amount of Exchange Online Plan 1 licenses. You need to be aware which of these are step-ups, because assigning a step-up license to someone that doesn't have the underlying base license will get you out of compliance and will cause problems when Microsoft figures this out during an audit or a software asset management project that they might be doing with you. So I do urge you to be wary for this mistake. We see it a lot. Optimizing Microsoft 365 environments. This is one of the things that I always try to look out for. You need to map what you have bought versus what you see in your portal. Now, finally, step-up SKUs must be purchased under the same licensing agreement and enrollment, if any, under which the qualifying base online service USL was acquired. Bear in mind, this counts for step-up licenses. You also have a lot of things that are considered an add-on, not necessarily a step-up. Step-up are usually always described in the stock keeping unit name. So an Exchange Online Plan 2 step-up will have the letters SU in the description of the SKU. For instance, phone system, it isn't necessarily a step-up, it's rather an add-on. So if you want to buy phone system, you don't necessarily have to do that in the same agreement that you have your E3 license in. It's an add-on to the license that you have. Never, as far as I know, has it been described that an add-on should be procured in that same, or that component, I should say, should be procured in the same contract. I shouldn't have called it an add-on, I think, because an add-on, for instance, to on-premise licenses that you might be that you might know of is different to what I'm describing here. So an additional component like phone system or audio conferencing, which does require a base underlying license, but it doesn't require that to be in the same agreement. So you could buy those licenses, for instance, in CSP while you have your E3 license in your EA. Moving on, Windows Desktop Operating System removed Get Genuine licenses. Wrong one. You can see that apparently here, restricted use qualifying OS for per device licenses. They removed this entire table. The reason that they did this, they have been removed from the price list, so you cannot buy these anymore. And finally, the Windows Server Standard Data Center and Essentials page was updated to allow for the Windows Server 2022 launch. At this moment, no changes to the terms. Just what they did is update everything from 2019 to 2022. And you don't see any large-scale changes here. That was it so far for the product terms. I do want to cover and highlight a few other things, because one of the things that we've been seeing quite a bit as of late as well is that people are still not aware what constitutes a tenant-wide service or not. So there's a very good entry in the Microsoft Docs space where they discuss the Microsoft 365 licensing guidance for security and compliance features. Most of the security and compliance features are tenant-wide services. They're services that you buy per user, but once you buy one unit of it, you have a tenant-wide, the functionality turned on tenant-wide. So actually you're out of compliance, because then that means that you should have it for every person within your tenant. You can scope this to some extent. It depends on the service as well. But what Microsoft has done is list this in this entry right here. If you search for Microsoft 365 license guidance for security and compliance, that's a big mouthful. Then you will find all the different services that this is relevant for. So if you look at Azure Active Directory identity protection, you will first always see how do users benefit from the services, which licenses provide rights to this, but also how is the service provisioned and deployed. And that's very interesting, because by default it says Azure AD identity protection features are enabled at the tenant level for all users within the tenant. So that means there's a tenant-wide compliancy that you should be aware of. And then in the question after that, how can the service be applied only to users in the tenant who are licensed for the service? Well, here it states is if that's possible or not. So in this case, admins can scope Azure AD identity protection by assigning risk policies that define the level for password resets and allowing access for licensed users only. So this service you can scope. However, if you look, for instance, towards this one, Microsoft Defender for Identity, same setup. How do you benefit? What license do you need to buy to be able to get the service? How is the service provisioned? By default, again, Microsoft Defender for Identity features are enabled at the tenant level for all users within the tenant. How can the service be applied only to users in the tenant who are licensed for the service? Microsoft Defender for Identity service aren't currently capable of limiting capabilities for specific users. You must license every user you intend to benefit. So that's a bit difficult, because if you don't intend to give everyone this service, which I would highly recommend to not do, but in the case that you see a use case where you want to do this, then you cannot. So if you think I need this for 500 users of my 5,000 employee organization, you definitely have to buy 5,000 licenses of this service. I would highly recommend everyone to bookmark this page. You can always reference it when you might need it. It's here for any and all of the security and compliance features, and it does give you a great idea on what is and what isn't possible. So you quickly know what you're up to. Basically, my rule of thumb is if you want the security or compliance features, most likely if you buy one of the compliance or security suite, you want to have this for your entire organization from the get-go. It's not possible to enforce it any other way, only if you're going to buy specific components. Look into this and make the right decision for your organization. Microsoft might even have you do a deal where they make you incompliant. I've seen deals where they would say, oh, why don't you just step into this deal with Microsoft 365 E5 security for 10% of your user population? And then I had to come in and say, hey, listen, Microsoft, you're making this customer incompliant from the get-go by doing this deal. Can you please put into words that that's not going to cause any issues? And then they wouldn't do it, because they can't, because these are the technical enforced rules around these products. So be cautious, be wary, and benefit from this page. Now, if we look to the Microsoft licensing news blog, and there were a couple of entries here. You see that they have some product naming improvements. This was released on August 24th. As part of the pursuit of simplicity and clarity in our commerce processes and systems, Microsoft is improving the descriptions of our part numbers for volume licensing to make it clear what products and services are being purchased. If you ask me, long overdue, because often these stock keeping units are or have become unreadable to the eyes of people that don't work in this space day to day. Product license numbers will stay the same, but as of September 2021, you'll begin to see clear descriptions on price list in the volume licensing service center. So they give an example. This obviously looks horrible. Does it look better now? I don't necessarily think so, but they removed a lot of the clutter. So it might be better understandable and readable for people that don't deal with this on a day-to-day basis. Finally, there was an entry on August 26th from MOSA, the Microsoft Online Services Agreement, so the Web Direct, what they also like to call it, to the Microsoft Customer Agreement. Microsoft states, you've probably heard about some of the great benefits of buying Azure directly from a Microsoft sales representative through the Microsoft Customer Agreement, like intuitive invoices and enhanced Azure cost management tools. All true, if you ask me. There's a lot of downsides to moving to the MCA, but intuitive invoices, it's definitely there. Their invoicing system has improved immensely, and enhanced Azure cost management tools. If you're used to anything in the EA, then you might already have these Azure cost management tools. But if you're coming from a Web Direct service, that might definitely be the case. This new way to buy Azure differs in important ways from buying Azure online through the MOSA agreement. Knowing what to expect can help you make an informed purchasing choice. So then they state how you can transition. It will not disrupt your Azure services or impact your RBAC. You'll simply move your billing account to the new agreement with a few easy steps, which they link. You buy through Azure Plan. Azure Plan doesn't necessarily mean that you're paying from the get-go. You're actually just paying for your usage, but they need to set up your initial portal. For that, they need to have you purchase a $0.00 Azure plan against which you're gonna consume. Any Azure reservations you had purchased through MOSA, you can transfer those. And if you need multi-tenant billing, MCA billing account can support many common customer scenarios. So this is one of the highlights, I think, for the MCA. It's very easy to set up multiple billing accounts and have your invoices split correctly without you having to do this manually or have some third-party tool help you do this. Another, I think, benefit is that your billing payment will change from credit card to invoice. Under the Web Direct, a lot of issues have been known with credit card payments, etc., etc. Doing this through an invoice, much easier. Apparently, it will change your billing anniversary date to the 5th of every month. And finally, the MCA doesn't support credits through subscriptions. So if you have Visual Studio, you won't be able to use these yet. This is something that they are, I heard, working on, but it takes some time for them to iron this out. All in all, I think this is a great description on how you can move from a Web Direct offer, so from the Microsoft website directly to MCA. Do take advantage of this if this is of interest to you, because it will make your life a lot easier. That was it for this time around. I want to thank you all for tuning in and listening, or looking at this in a later stage. I hope you do enjoy this content. Do give me your feedback, and I hope you have a very good day. Thank you. Bye.